Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca Smekla. I'm coming to you from the Educational Technology Department, welcoming you here to our session, Introduction to the Smart Learning Suite Online, also known as SLSO. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, before I introduce our guests, I wanted to go over just a little bit of housekeeping. In the chat, you can communicate with us and our moderators. Our moderators have blue wrenches by their names, and we have our moderators in the chat because we are coming to you from the future. We're about 20 seconds ahead of you, so when you have questions, we might not always hear those or see those. So our moderators are here to help get your answers for you. As always, this session is being recorded. It will post immediately onto our YouTube channel following the production, and it will also be on our EdTech training website. We hope you like this video. If you do, please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, go ahead and subscribe below. If you subscribe and you click that notification bell, when we go live, you will get an email notification letting you know that, hey, we are doing a live stream training and we'd love for you to join us. We do have a hashtag ETPBC Summer PD, and we would love to see your workshop selfies. So if you're joining us today, turn around, take a quick screenshot, or not screenshot, a selfie of you and your learning. Tag us, please, at ETPBC Summer PD, at EdTech PBC. We want to see your beautiful faces and engage with you in your learning adventure. So today we have two special guests. We have Hillary and we have Ryan. They are our dedicated smart training specialists here in Palm Beach County. Wanted to welcome them, and they are going to introduce you to SLSO.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the introduction to the Smart Learning Suite Online. My name is Ryan Roach, and I'm a training specialist here designated to Palm Beach County. So we're here to help you with the professional development around the smart solution. My information is here, my email address, and please follow me on Twitter at SmartRyan33. I also have my colleague, Hillary Matevia, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey everyone, I'm Hillary Matevia. I'm a smart training specialist here in Palm Beach County. So glad to be with you guys today.
Thank you. And we also have a couple of our other colleagues, Laura Von Helma and Akia Shepard. They'll be dropping links to some resources and also answering your questions in the chat as we go through our presentation today. All right, so for today's objective, we're going to leverage the power of the smart solution or the Smart Learning Suite Online to develop engaging activities and lessons. So our agenda today is we're going to introduce you to the Smart Learning Suite Online. We're going to enhance a pre-created lesson using the Smart Learning Suite Online. So we'll be using some smart activities, adding some YouTube videos, introducing you to handouts, and also using our response feature. And also we'll, at the end, wrap up and tell you a couple of ways that you can actually deliver your Smart Learning Suite Online lessons. So a little bit about the Smart Learning Suite Online. It is a engaging lesson delivery tool that you can get your students a little bit more involved in the learning, and also start from scratch or build or leverage content that you already have. So use those Google Slides, those PowerPoints, those students' workbook pages, and enhance them a little bit more by creating some smart activities, adding some videos in one file to make it a little bit easier for your students to access and for you to navigate, especially during virtual learning. And again, you have multiple options to deliver these presentation, your Smart Learning Suite Online presentations, with either in your classroom from your smart panel, over Google Meet, or posting these lessons to Google Classroom. And the best thing about the Smart Learning Suite Online is the Google integration. So when you are creating your lessons, they are going to be stored in your Drive. You can also share them out with your colleagues, and then also post them to your Google Classroom as well, organize them and kind of collaborate with your colleagues as the year goes on. So with that said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand it over to Hillary to kind of go through the steps of enhancing that pre-created lesson.
Thanks, Ryan. So like Ryan mentioned, we have a really awesome system that's integrated with Google. And our purpose of this lesson today is to take a pre-created lesson that I have as a teacher and put it into Smart Learning Suite Online while giving you guys a brief overview and a tutorial so that you can try this out on your own. And after I show you how to do these things, we do the tutorial aspect, I'm also going to give you an opportunity to interact as a student. And Akia and Laura and our Smart Training Specialist team are in the chat. So as questions pop up, please be sure to put them in there. So where we start, how we access Smart Learning Suite Online is in Google Drive. So here I am, I'm in my Google Drive, and I'm going to access Smart Learning Suite Online by going to New, More, Smart Learning Suite. Everyone should have that there as long as you're logged into your Palm Beach County Google account. Here's mine. I've got my logo over here. I'm going to do that one more time. It's New, More, Smart Learning Suite. And as this is loading, it will take you to what's called our dashboard or your choose your own adventure. The first time that you log in, it may ask you to connect your account. It just is a couple of clicks where you'll click sign in with Google and choose your Palm Beach Schools account, and then it will bring you to the dashboard when it loads. So just so you know, you will have to sign in. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a resource that I already have and turn it into a Smart Learning Suite file. So here's my dashboard. This is all the different ways I can start a Smart Learning Suite online lesson. Lots of different options here. I can start with importing a resource, YouTube video, link page. These are all smart specialty items down here. Don't worry, we're going to see this page again, and we're going to get into these a little bit more, explaining these a little more in depth in order for you to understand what these different options are. But we specifically talked about starting with a lesson I already have. So under Import Resources, I've got two options. I can pull files into Smart Learning Suite from Google Drive, like Google Slides, Docs, PDFs, all kinds of different things, or I can pull directly from my device. Same sort of files are supported, PowerPoints like Ryan mentioned before, PDFs, more documents. But what I'm going to do is go from my Google Drive today. So I'll click here, and that brings me right to my Google Drive. Now here's the file I know I want to upload into Smart Learning Suite. This is the file I'm going to teach to my class. I just press select, and you'll see here that it says setting up your lesson. This file will be added to your Google Drive, meaning my Smart Learning Suite online file is going to be saved automatically in my Google Drive. What's happening right now is it's taking that lesson that I'm planning on using with my kiddos, and it's converting it to an edit screen. So here we are on our edit screen. We're ready to make changes to this in order to teach it to our class. Now, in the past, this is a lesson I've taught face-to-face. So it needs to be adapted for our learning environment right now and enhanced in order for students to interact with this. My favorite thing about Smart Learning Suite Online is that I can use it with my students, whether they're on campus or at home. As long as they have an internet-enabled device, they're able to access this lesson. It's so neat. We don't have to worry about even using a smartboard. Lucky me, I've got one behind me. Lucky you've got one in your classroom, hopefully. But you don't even need a smartboard in order to do this because it's a web-based browser. So here's my title page. Here's my lesson intro. Typically, when I start this lesson, start with some sort of hook. We're doing equal parts and non-equal parts. And I would maybe just have my students take a look at this and say, what do you notice? And in the classroom, I might do a turn and talk or a stop and jot, but we're doing this digitally. So I want to figure out a way to do that with my kiddos. So down here in Smart Learning Suite Online, in the editing mode, there's a blue and white plus button. Does this look familiar? This is the same dashboard that we used to import the resources previously when we were setting this up in edit mode. I'm going to choose an activity to add into my lesson to get my students introduced. So I mentioned that typically I would do a turn and talk or a stop and jot, but I want to do that digitally. So here I've got a shout it out. This works really similarly. I pose a question to my students, and then they're able to respond, and their answers will pop up on a bulletin board just like this. Now, I press Select Activity, and I'm going to have a couple of options to set it up. So in my shout it out here, just a couple of options. This is a super easy one to set up. I can have my students' contributions or their answers arrive on my teacher screen, randomized just all over like it showed in the preview, or I can categorize it. So if I wanted to, like a KWL, or what do you notice, what do you wonder, we can categorize it. But for today, I'm going to have my students' contributions just pop up randomly. I want my students to be able to write or type in their text. But this also supports images. So if you were doing, let's say, geometry and you wanted your students to take a picture or find an image of geometry in the real world, they could do images. This is how many times I want my students to contribute. Sometimes we just want them to contribute once. I want my students this time to just tell me all the things they noticed about those shapes on the previous page. So I'm going to keep it at 3. And then finally, we can have where it shows student names or hides students' names. We'll get into this a little bit more whenever I show you this from the student perspective and why this may be important. After that, I just press finish. And voila, there's my shout it out. It added it directly after the what do you notice page. Now, one little tip or trick I like to share with you is I like to put my shouted out question that I want students to answer on this page. That way we can be reminded and we don't have to toggle through the pages here. All right, so I've got my hook. Now I'm moving into the teach portion of my lesson. So this is the same exact page that we had on page 2, but the really neat thing here is that I can manipulate these shapes. So maybe I'll take the things that Susie or Sally or Johnny said and say, okay, they noticed that this circle is divided into 2 even parts, but this circle isn't divided into even parts. And I can move these and manipulate these around. I do want to add some category titles. Up here at the top of the page, you'll notice this is on the pages here that we imported in. I have the ability to add in text. So I can just click the A and type in equal. That's too small for me, so I'm just going to highlight it and use this font box here to change it up. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, change the color. All right. Now, after you do it, you can click and move it. Okay. And I'm going to add one over here that says unequal. That way, whenever I get to work with my students, we'll categorize these into two different categories. Okay, so moving on, after I teach, I want to give my students the ability to implement what we just talked about in a risk-free zone. So there's some different options that we have here using that same blue and white plus button to access the Smart Learning Suite features. I've got a few different things here. Now, the word I mentioned was risk-free and practice. I want my students to have the ability to take what we've learned and try it out. There's all kinds of games here, and one of the cool things about Smart Learning Suite is if you don't know what it is, press the magnifying glass and you'll get a preview. Some of my favorite games are Monster Quiz. I'll press preview here. This is a competitive team-based game. I really like this for review. The kids get really into it. They answer individually, but they're on a team trying to beat the other team. It's very, very fun. Another game we really like to use is the Match 'em Up. I'll press preview here. This is where students can do one-to-one correspondence. I like this. I've used this for like synonyms and antonyms, positive integers, and solving math problems. It's really neat. You can have the answer on one side and the problem on the other side. It's great for math facts. The one I'm going to use today is a super sort. Here's the super sort. This is where students classify the objects into each category. So we'll do equal and unequal shapes. And as you see in the preview, what I love about this is it has repeated review built in. The students get a chance to go until they get it right. I'm going to press select activity. And I'm going to type in equal shapes. Equal shapes. Now, I could type in here, but that doesn't help my students with this activity. We've used visuals so far. So you see where it says enter text or add image? I'll just click this little Polaroid picture icon right here. and I'm able to add in images into the game. These images are already saved on my computer, so I'll just click and press open. It doesn't take very long. You just click and add. Brian, how else have you seen SuperSort used in a classroom?
I've used it in a few different ways. One that I saw a teacher use was she was kind of introducing students to urban areas and suburban areas, and what would you see in those different areas? Maybe tall buildings, or would you see farmland and different things like that? So the students were kind of sorting what they would see nouns versus verbs. You could do synonyms as well. So there's many different ways. I used to do a lot of life skills and daily living skills with my students, or maybe what would be appropriate, what would be non-appropriate in certain aspects. So there's many ways you could use SuperSort.
I think what's really neat about it is, especially for that pre-K, K1-2 population, and for ESE, is the fact that it does sort images. So many times when we're learning online virtually, it's hard because they have to read so much and they're not ready to read. So that it supports images is really neat. Okay, so I finished. Here, I'll go back. I finished adding my images. I'm ready to go to the next step. I'll just click next. Pick a background. My favorite background is this little rocket ship one, because at the end, the alien ships blast off. You can try out these different ones. And when you're ready, you just press finish. And just like Shout It Out, it added a page here. So I'm going to put a title, Shapes SuperSort. And as a teacher, you can preview what the students see. I'll just click it here. We'll get into this whenever we get into the student side a little bit more, but I want to show you just really quickly. Just click and drag. We've got equal shapes. Click and drag, unequal shapes. You see how it disappears when they get it right. If they get it wrong, it bounces it back. So that was that repeated review, risk-free practice I was talking about. We don't have to worry about our students thinking they're going to get a grade on it right away. Like, this is just for fun and just to reinforce the learning that we've done today. All right, so got my teach portion. We've had some practice. I want to add one more thing to drive home and reiterate what we've been talking about. Down here in the blue and white plus button, there's one of the coolest features on Smart Learning Suite Online. Right here is YouTube. What's so neat about this YouTube edition is that it's ad-free, it's comment-free. So all that's in here is the video, and it embeds it directly in the lesson. So my students aren't having to go to external websites, not having to worry about any ads popping up. It's just the video. I'm going to search equal parts. I'm familiar with the video that I want to add already. It's right here. It's this little pizza one. It's all about pizza and pie. So I want to select that one because who doesn't like pizza and pie? However, if you know the video that you want, you can always copy and paste the link directly in here and it will add your YouTube video as well. Another little quick tip is this red icon gives you a preview. So if you're unsure about the video and you just start searching, you press the preview button and it will play the YouTube video for you. Might just take a quick second to load and you can kind of fast forward and see if there's my pizza and pie I was talking about. This is the one I want. In order to import it, you just click to get the blue box and then choose add. Just like our other features in Smart Learning Suite, it added a new slide in here. So now my students can navigate through the lesson. Okay, guys, I've got my intro, I've got my teach, I had independent practice, I reinforced my learning. Now I'm ready for my students to really try on their own. In the classroom, what I would have done is I would have had them take this shape and put it in their notebook and divided it into equal shapes and into equal parts. I can't do that right now, but I want to be able to give them opportunity to practice. So at the bottom of our screen, right here, we've got a little magic wand, and it's really magical what happens whenever we press it. It's going to take this page and turn it into a digital handout, a copy that the students can work on their own and I as the teacher can see in live time. I click Convert to Activity. And I'm going to choose to make this page an individual handout activity because I want each student to get a copy. You can turn pages into group pages. We're not going to get into that in this training. That's in our next training. That's on Thursday. I'm going to click Make this page an individual handout. And boom, now it's a handout. I'm going to change it, put some directions here.
Some other great ways that you could use the handout feature is for you can import newsletter articles in as well. Also, I've done some timelines where students are able to create timelines and also Venn diagrams, so they're able to go in there and do the work that you want them to complete.
Yeah, any page that you've pulled into your lesson, you're able to convert into an activity where the students can interact. I'm just going to give you a quick preview. And so students will have some tools here where they can access this. And we're about to participate as students so that you can see what the student view looks like. Okay, so they got independent practice. And before I end my lesson today, I just want to get a wrap up, an exit ticket. So if I click down here, the white plus button, my final activity for my kiddos is I want to go down here to ready-made activities. And activating prior knowledge, these are ready-made activities that you can use, obviously, when you're activating prior knowledge at the beginning of a lesson. And then questioning and reflection are great for mid-workshop teach points or to close a lesson. So when I click questioning and reflection, there's all kinds of activities here. Same as I showed you earlier, you can preview a lesson or activity here for students to do. This one is my favorite. It's the same thing I mentioned earlier. It has images and text there. There's a few others that the kiddos can work on. In order to import it, you just click and it's truly ready-made, which means it's ready to go. How do you feel about the topic? If you wanted to get a closer look, you can just press edit and it will show you what the questions say. So you can see my smiley face. I'm totally getting this, or the I mostly understand, but I have questions. And also, I'm still kind of confused. This is going to give me a pulse on my class and see who I need to pull into a small group to finish up with this lesson. All right, if you're all good with it, you press next, you press finish, and now my lesson is ready to go. You can use the blue and white plus button in order to add more activities to this, but I feel like this is a solid amount of work for us to do for our mini lesson and independent practice today. Up here at the top, you can change the title if you wanted to. So I can put the date, 8/25, and you'll see it says saving, and then it will turn to saved. This means it's, there it goes, to saved. It's automatically saving in your Google Drive. When you're finished, you're just going to click Finish Editing, and this is going to take you to the presentation screen. Now, I don't know about you guys, but typically when I'm making things for my students, I'm not ready to present it right away. I'm making it in planning or at home, and then I press Finish Editing, and I'm not quite ready to present this yet. So I do want to show you really quickly where to find this after you're done. So I pressed Finish Editing. It took me to the presentation screen. I could exit if I wanted, and you'll see that my drive is still open. So I'm going to click here, and there it is, 8/25 equal parts SLSO webinar lesson. That is what I just did. I know that this is an SLSO lesson because it's got SLS, and it has this blue and purple and green SLS icon. The other little trick I like to do in order to find a Smart Learning Suite lesson is to, if I know the title, I would just search it. Right, I can search equal parts. Or you can always just search .sls and press enter. And this will bring up all your Smart Learning Suite files. Here's all of mine that I've made in this account. So you can see all of the files that have been saved in your Google Drive. We'll get into this a little bit more, but what I want to do now is take it to the next level. I showed you guys how we create this. Now I want you to be able to participate as a student. Now, if you don't feel comfortable switching screens or following the next steps, please, please, please stay in YouTube and watch. I'll be sure to show the teacher and the student portion. However, if you feel comfortable and you want to join in as a student, click this plus button right here. And you're going to go to hellosmart.com. You're going to join as a guest. Put in my class code, which is 889330. What I'm going to do is split my screen here. And I'm going to do this with you guys. So I'm going to sign in as a student. Oh, I'm not going to sign in as a student. Sorry. going to join as a guest. And just so you guys know, I am about 30 seconds ahead, so it will say I'm waiting for students to connect, but that's just because there's a little delay in the YouTube stream that you guys are seeing. Put in the class ID, and then put in your name. I'm going to put in student so I know it's my sample. So you can see as the teacher over here that I can see I've got students connected at hellosmart.com with their class ID. And this on the right-hand side with the black box, this is my student view. So we'll get to experience the student view and the teacher view. I do want to wait just a few seconds because I see that my numbers are jumping up as far as who's joining, and I don't want to move ahead too quickly. We'll give it about 10 more seconds. If you feel comfortable, you can click a new tab and join, or if you just want to stay in YouTube and watch, I'll be showing you the same thing, so don't worry. Okay, so on the left is the teacher side. You can see this because I've got it in a gray tab. It just looks a little different, and the students are over here on this darker screen. Now, whatever happens on my teacher screen happens on the student screen. So I drew a smiley face on here. You've got a smiley face over there. If I wanted to model or write a note to my kiddos, I would be able to do that. When I change pages, it changes on the student end. It's instantly. So I would tell my students, all right, guys, we're going to quietly, I don't want you to say anything. I want you to quietly take a look at these shapes. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Right? In class, I might give them a full minute, but you guys have seen this. So I'm going to move you on. And I'm going to ask you as my students to tell me, what did you notice? What did you wonder about the shape? So I press as the teacher, I press start for class. And you as the students will have a white box appear where you can answer, what did you notice about the shapes? Remember, we're just a little ahead, so if you don't see it quite yet, you'll see it in a second, and then it's going to pop up. I'm showing you on the student end how I can type it in and press send. Now, my friends who chose to join on hellosmart.com, after you're done answering, if you could just pop over back to our YouTube live session, I want you to take a look and see what it looks like on the teacher screen. This way you can see, I told you I would show you guys a couple things. I'm going to shrink this over. So everyone's answers are popping up here. And I'm able to click an answer. This person answered well. They were divided in parts, and I can highlight this. Like, I really love what you said here. Also, let's say we know sometimes students don't always give appropriate answers. I can quickly just drag it to the trash and delete it. I'm not going to do that. But the other really neat feature is over here on the left, I've got a gear. It's the universal sign for settings. And what I can do is I can turn off my student display names. We talked about that anonymity earlier. Why would I want my students' names to be off versus on? The reason at the beginning of the year, some students don't quite feel ready to take a risk or to answer out loud. We know those students who are super smart, but they never raise their hand in class. These are the kiddos who really shine using this. But I, as the teacher, have the accountability to say, okay, I see that Cynthia gave 3 answers. Now, I probably wouldn't call her out in a real class, but I'm able to do that here. The other neat thing, this one, we've got a lot of people in here, I've got almost 40 people. You can move them around and categorize them. I'm also using a tiny little portion of my screen. That's why it looks really cramped. But if you were doing a full screen, you typically wouldn't be showing a student view and a teacher view at the same time. You're able to rearrange these all different ways so we could categorize them. I also love this for small groups because they can answer all of their answers on here, and then we can talk about it in a small group. All right, I'm going to move on from the shout it out. So I changed pages on my teacher end. It automatically changed you over here. Now I talked about how in my intention in the lesson was I was going to highlight what my students said. So some people said they're all different colors. I'm like, yes, they are different colors, but what else do we notice and push their thinking a little bit? Well, they were divided into parts. Yes, what kind of parts? Well, I see that these are divided into 3s and these are divided into 2s. And if you've taught this lesson before, you know the kids say that equal means 2. For some reason, they always think that. I like that I can show them different options here, right? Like, well, this is divided into 3 even sections. And as I'm moving these on my screen and you're hearing my voice, it's also happening on the student end. So I'm just going to finish really quickly. Right, okay, here we go. And our students can see what we've done. That's my teach portion. And now I'm going to let my students go off into independent practice. So I would direct you guys to press start and to play the game. Now, I did mention previously that this is for practice. This isn't for a grade. This is what I would want my students to do on their own. So I would set a timer and say, okay, guys, let's take 3 to 4 minutes and go through this at your own pace. For my rushers, after they finish, can reset and play again. So they're not just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for directions. And for my students who need a little bit more time, who maybe get 1 or 2 wrong or just aren't quite understanding, they're able to practice until they can see why it's correct or incorrect. I want to show you what it looks like on their end when they finish. If you're watching in my YouTube page, I'm able to reset and play again. Guys, I want to give you guys a little bit more time so you can finish up. If you're still playing, we'll just take about 10 more seconds. Okay, and moving on. Now, this is the YouTube video. I mentioned previously that there's no ads, no comments. It doesn't take them out to a different screen. So my students play it on their own time. So in your student screen, you can press play. I want to play this for you to show you how that works. We're not going to watch the whole thing. So just take a quick second to press play. And here it is. It's just the video. I'm staying inside my Smart Learning Suite lesson. So I, as the teacher, can kind of direct what's happening here. Okay, going to pause it. Okay, we are going to move on. This was the student handout page. Before you press start, please come back to YouTube Live for just a second. I want to show you a couple of different things before I release you to do this on your own. Now, I'm going to press start as the student on my end. If you're in YouTube, you'll be able to see this. As the teacher, I'm going to press student progress. When you press student progress, you can see all the students that have begun. But as a student, I've got all these tools that I can use in order to divide the shapes, okay? So here I've divided these, and I know what I signed in as student. When your student is done, they can press done. They can use all these tools on the left. There's a pen, there's an eraser. They can input their own images of equal parts. They can type in text, or they can use their finger. What's really neat is we know lots of students are using touch screen devices nowadays. A lot of the Chromebooks are touch screens, iPads, phones, tablets, those are all touch screen. So they can use their finger as the pen on here as they wanted to move things around. It's really neat. All right, when they're finished, we'll press done. And I can see on my teacher end, let me maximize it for a second. Student, that's my sample, is done. I can click in there and see what my kiddo has done. And as the teacher, I can say, you didn't finish. check the circle and rectangle. And then I'd like to put my name. I can change the font. You can leave it however you want. I'm not a big red font person. All right. And you can use these little handles to resize, to stretch it out, whatever we want to do. Okay, back to my split screen so you can see. Here I am on my student end. I see my note from my teacher. So I gave them the feedback, you didn't finish. Oh no, I forgot. I got to go back and finish. So I'm just going to press edit and finish this up. You, as the teacher, are able to toggle through the students so I can check out all my other kiddos and see who needs to get started, who's completed, all that good stuff. I can navigate from here as well. Okay, so great job. I might push Christina a little bit further and say, can you divide it into more than just equal parts of 1 and 2s? What about 4? What about 5 or 6? All right, so our last thing we're going to do before we move on, I love handouts. So you can use this in so many different ways. Ryan mentioned earlier that he's done this with like Newsella articles or other PDFs. This supports PDFs that you've used. So I've seen teachers use math pages in here where their students can write their answers. You're not limited to just shapes. Really think about different options. I was a reading teacher. I loved putting a paragraph or a reader in here and having my students practice their test-taking skills or their reading strategies using highlighters and different things. All right, our last activity in here is the response. This was the closing exit activity. So I'm going to press start for class. And on your end, as the student, you'll see the question pop up. This one only has 1. I get to answer, how do you feel about this topic? Got it, mostly got it, but I have questions. I'm still confused. I'm going to go with B. Just press the blue arrow by the 1 at the top to submit it. And then you're done. And it says, great job. Okay, over here on the teacher end, I can see this as my students are answering. I have about 46%, 50% of my students have answered so far. If you wanted to show live results, you just press this little button. It's going to show you where most students are answering. Okay, so I've got mostly half my class says, I mostly understand, but I still have questions. That means that I probably need to touch on this again or pull these kiddos into small groups. At 11, they're the ones that have totally aced it. And I've got one that says, I don't get this at all. Now, as my students are finishing this, so I've got 75% here. As my students are finishing this, I'm able to press end activity. I would wait typically until we've had 100%, but I know some people are watching me. So I'm going to press end activity, and it's end and review. So I'm able to see on the left side who answered and who hasn't answered. And then at the bottom, I'm able to see what the results are. So I can see which students answered and how they answered. That way I can touch base with them and make sure I follow up with those kiddos who maybe need to be pulled in for a little more instruction by using this export results button. So that covers how we do a lesson. I'm going to click this here, number 8 at the bottom. This is just so you can see how to navigate from top to bottom. Okay, but I just want to review a couple more things before I hand it back over to Ryan. I finished presenting this lesson. However, using this hamburger or these 3 lines at the top, that's our little menu, I can go back to edit this lesson. Okay, if I needed to change it for a class or something like that. And I want to remind you that where you find this lesson after you press finish editing is you can find it always in your Google Drive. So I'm going to go to my homepage in my Drive. I've got a really clean drive here because this is one I don't use very much. You can always find it by, it's going to save in your drive. You can search the title, equal parts, or you can always search .SLS. All right, so this covers our portion of our tutorial and our student view. Thank you guys so much for listening to me. I want to hand it back over to Ryan. He's got a few things to wrap up and remind us of before we head out for the day.
Thank you, Hillary. So as Hillary mentioned today, you have a couple of different lesson delivery options. So similar to the way that you are following Hillary on the student view and the teacher view, you could also run your Smart Learning Suite online lessons through Google Meet. So the students would start out looking at your screen. They would log into Hello Smart, similar to what you did. Uh, and then also they could go to their tile and search the word smart, and they would log in as a student. So they could do that as that way, and they would follow along between two different tabs when you want them to complete their work. Or as you see through the image here, they could be in the classroom running the Smart Learning Suite lesson on their smart panel, or you could also post the lesson into Google Classroom as well by locating the Smart Learning Suite online lesson and uploading it and adding it to Google Classroom, and then having the students log in from there. Next, we just want to make sure that you are aware of smart.palmbeachschools.org. Our other training specialists will be putting this information into the chat where you can find our contact information, frequently asked questions, and just overall contacts from Smart and the EdTech team. And also we have a great Smart teacher guide as well that we will be linking into the chat for you as well. Some how-to guides, instructional ideas, and also we've been spending a lot of time on video tutorials to kind of help you guys out as well. And feel free, they'll be putting our information in the chat as well to reach out to us for maybe one-on-one support as well, or small groups. And we just want to let you know and remind you of Smart Exchange. This is a lesson repository. It is completely free. You could download these if you sign into the website. They will go automatically to your Google Drive, and you could use and share with your colleagues. All right. And then also the last portion is head over to the ELM to complete the implementation portion of this training session. So thank you very much. And I'll hand it back over to Rebecca.
I just realized I'm muted. I apologize. Thank you so much, Ryan. I'll bring you and Hillary back up at the very end to say your farewells, but that was excellent as always. I hope everyone out there watching enjoyed that. If you have any questions at all about Smart Learning Suite Online or how you can implement it with your classes this year, please reach out to any of our dedicated training specialists. They are all amazing and they are here to help. For this course, please make sure you are enrolled in e-learning management, ELM. Please make sure you have enrolled by this Friday. So enrollment for this class will end on Friday. The course will not close, but the enrollment option is. So when you go into ELM, make sure you find the one that if you see in the little yellow circle, it's the August date. That is the one that you want to be enrolled in. And there is the alternate enrollment option. Make sure you have the live version in that little box. It has the date. There is some implementation. So in our live sessions, the implementation is located in Module 2. If you did one of the previous recording sessions, that would be in Module 3. So not to be confused, for the live session, you will launch your implementation from Module 2. You'll create a couple of screenshots and a small reflection piece in order to complete that bucket. As always, EdTech is here to serve you. We are offering office hours on Thursdays this year from 11:30 to 12:30. That's subject to change. We're trying to just figure out everyone's schedules and what works best for our teachers this year. We will not have office hours this Thursday because we will have 3 other live streams. We'll have a stream on Google Classroom. We'll invite Smart back for a more advanced look at SLSO. And then we'll also have a really great session on the 4 C's. Where can you find our information? Where can you find all of our recordings? Where can you find all of our resources? That's on our website, edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org. On the left-hand side where it says live stream resources, there's a drop-down. On that drop-down, you'll see all of the live streams that we did in the spring, throughout the summer. And as we continue into the fall, we'll be posting all of our information there. We also have a Twitter chat coming up. For those of you who are familiar with or not familiar with the DOT, there is International DOT Day on September 15-ish, and that worked out really, really well for us because we're going to do a Twitter chat using the DOT to discuss some of the social emotional learning strategies that you can use with remote learning, and once we get back into the classroom as well. So we hope you'll join us on September 15th at 3:30 for our Twitter chat. You'll join the conversation with the hashtag EdTechPBC, PB chat. And if you have any questions regarding anything on our website, any questions you might have for technology integration, feel free to email anyone from the training team. There's our contact information there. Also, the entire educational technology team, all of us, we're so grateful to have you here in our county, and we're here to help. So you can reach out to any of us. Ryan, Hillary, thank you so much for today's session. It was very informative, very clear and concise. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Always glad to be here. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
All right, everyone. I hope to see you this afternoon for our session on Blender. Have a great lunch.